Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and welcome to maybe the DPA panel. This time around I have Dan Castle with me and this is so what we're gonna do. So before I let him introduce himself, what we're gonna do this time around is actually today, as per this recording, there's a leaked document, allegedly US from the United States or NATO, and probably it's the same thing, of some document that is part of their SIP or reports that is actually on the 1st of March. So it's around 1 month old. And this 1 month old documents shows a lot of information that was previously unknown. And this classified top secret, which is actually the correct classification, because top secret actually refers to things that that is about you that other people cannot know. Usually secret is about what you know about other people that you don't want people to know that you know. So the classification actually is correct. So I can tell you this because I was part of Intel. So this is how classification tend to work. And just disclaimer, there is a possibility this could also be a disinformation campaign by whoever they release this document. It could be the Russians, it could be the Ukrainians, it could be the Americans. We have no idea. So the information that is being later we will be going through might actually be inaccurate or manipulated to create a false narrative or false information to affect whichever side that was actually the target of the disinformation or misinformation operation. So do take all this with a pinch of salt. But what's important is to understand what is the documents is about, and that's why I have Dan on, because Dan was a Marine that was fighting in Afghanistan, and he understands the documents, and I also have some experience with in terms of military documents, and so far from our view is this looks pretty legitimate. So first I want to let Dan introduce himself, his background, and why his words mean something. So Dan.
Hello, guys. My name is Dan Castle. I'm a United States Marine Corp Afghanistan war veteran. I'm combat decorated, and so I wanted to come on this panel because the paperwork that came through is basically a manifest that you would pass down to your junior officers or high-ranking officers to kind of go over details. So they look pretty legitimate. So, like Wyatt said, take it with a grain of salt. It could be fake, it could be real, but we're going to go over them because we want to kind of show you what goes on in different levels when you're doing major operations. And I'm excited for this.
Yeah, so I will also introduce myself. I'm a previously in the military for 6 years, and I cannot tell you much about myself because everything is classified. And even though I'm actually kind of allowed to say it by now, I think I prefer to not tell you much things. I can only tell you that I was part of within the intelligence umbrella, and I do ops throughout most of my 6 years. So yeah, and ops means in Intel ops usually is 24/7. So that's how it is. So anyway, but because mine dealing with Singapore military, so I don't really understand. I may not understand or actually have experience in terms of NATO kind of acronyms and stuff, which is why Dan would be really useful in kind of like dissecting these documents. So I'm going to share the document. Let me see, how do I put it on? This button. Yeah. So this is Photoshop. And what happens is that all the documents you previously have seen is probably very yellowish, and this is actually kind of different. Let me show you what is the original look like. Oh no. So the original looks like this. It's very orangey and it's very folded, and So there's 5 documents. So I have already done some work on it to clean it up, so you can see the color is different. The images is actually less blur. It's still quite bad, but I think we can actually read it. So to start off, I want to show this one first because this is actually the SIP that they received this 1st March. So and then on a different document, which is actually this one, D370, which is actually day 370 of the conflict. This D370 is actually 28th of Feb. So 28th of Feb actually, so as per you, if you follow my SITREP, you will know that it's always one day later. So that's why the SITREP is actually on the 1st March, as you can see here. This is 1st March at 5 a.m. So this is actually accurate as per the document is actually 1st March. Yeah, so then where shall we start?
Well, basically, I think that we should point out that this one is marked as secret. There is some documents that are top secret,
Top
but here on the
secret.
top right,
Yeah, this is top secret.
exactly. So we
So
can point out the difference between for the viewers, the different ranking systems. Like this one's top secret, and the one we were just on, it marks secret here on the top right.
why would this be secret? Or why would this be top secret? Actually, yeah, let me think.
That's just something I noticed.
Yeah, I think this one, because this one I think relating to intel, like the kind of information that you get, and like what do they know about the enemy. This maybe this is the reason why it's top secret. I'm not
A
like,
lot of positionings
yeah, because I was
in the
just an
actual
intel
battle.
spec. I was a specialist. I'm not an officer, so my clearance is not high enough to understand this kind of thing. So we can start off with some information. So as per the 1st of March, what will happen is that this is a SITREP they reported. As 1st March, Russian and Wagner is focusing on seizing Bakhmut, and then while the Ukrainians has consolidated their gains in Kherson, reinforced defense in Bakhmut to protect the rest of the what's GLOC?
I don't know about that, but I'll get back to you on that one.
Maybe general location. I don't know. From potential Russian advance in eastern Ukraine. Yeah, grouping. Not too sure what's GLOC. I haven't seen this before. And Russian forces continue ground operation in Donetsk, established defense in depth between Kherson and Zaporizhia, central western grouping of troops, and were Bakhmut and Crimea, and southern eastern Kherson and Zaporizhia. So general SITREP, I think nothing particularly special. And interesting, they have some intel about what happened the past 2 days, 3 days. Yeah, do we need to go through this? Is it important? I think this is more interesting, right?
Yeah, we can go through it. I don't know if we were gonna go back to the other one,
Okay,
but
we can do this
yeah,
first. Okay.
So basically, what I wanted to point out is that on a manifest of something like this, here you have when you're conducting military operations, you have to have troop counts, you have to have equipment counts, and you have to have their combat readiness. And this is basically a sheet that shows you their training, the equipment that's going to be delivered, and it's going to be by what country to where. And this is a very, very cool document. This is one of my favorites that came out. We can go line
Yeah.
by line if you want.
So in case people are not familiar, military really like to use Excel, like So this is actually very military, and military also very like to use this kind of timeline stuff, where I'm not sure what is it called, some kind of bar showing that from what time to what time is what things happening.
Mhm.
Then every column is actually 1 month. This is actually very military, and it helps people to understand what is happening at any one time. And so this is actually very cool. What is most significant, I think, is the spring offensive. They marked it as 1st of April, but is it really 1st of April? Because there's this blue line, the blue column that extending further, right? Any idea what is LEN?
Well, Poland, Slovakia, LEN.
What could it be?
No
Not
idea.
sure. Yeah, could it be the point where they form up, or
I mean,
moving
I
to
think
the or moving to where they are supposed to go? Because this by end of March, by right, from this document, it seems like they are supposed to get everything delivered and all the troops trained, and then they're going to do a spring offensive. But of course, they're not going to just suddenly go to attack, but there will be a period of time. So this looks like, maybe 10 to 12 days into April.
Yeah, it could be any of that, but so this is if we go to the beginning and it shows you basically the brigade. I don't know what number that one is, but it's cut
Mhm.
off on which brigade is being is set is formed up, and it tells
Yeah,
you,
the original is cut as well.
yeah, so 90
Yeah.
BMPs, Poland and Czechoslovakia. That's basically where they're going to be training at, because right across it has the same, um, and it just goes down the line from the delivery on hand. It says that they have this equipment that they're talking about is on hand. So
Mhm.
some of these are not actually on hand
Yeah, it's
completely.
like for this one they are not too sure what tanks are they, and
Yeah,
they're not sure when it will be delivered as well. So that's interesting.
exactly.
And there is BMP T-64s. So there is definitely still Ukrainian assets that is still uh, not shown on the front, because we always hear a lot from pro-Russian sources saying that there is no more this, no more that, and the Ukrainians are running out of armor. But it seems like
Yeah,
they still have decent number of armors. In T-55, Slovakia, Slovenia.
yeah,
There's
Slovenia.
artillery, and interesting. Okay, for those that do not know NATO symbols, uh, this is actually a uh, mechanized infantry, mechanized infantry. Then this is armor and this artillery, correct? The
Mm-hmm.
symbol. Yeah, this is mechanized infantry or motorized infantry. This armor, and then this artillery, and all of them is the same. So this is something that I noticed. All of them is the same. Oops. So all of them is the same, which means that all these brigades are combined arms brigades. Like they are not not infantry brigades or armored tank brigades, but they are all combined arms with artillery, infantry, motorized infantry with tank plus artillery support. So they all can operate on individually, I think, independently.
Yeah, all these things are meant to be actually their own, and you could even tell from the places that they're being trained. Not all of these battalions are being trained in the same areas. You go down the line and they change places everywhere, so they're coming from all over the place.
Yeah, and interestingly is that they all finished on 30th of March. Some of them
Hmm.
already finished training, like the AMX 10. There's 14 of them. We heard a lot. We heard about them in the beginning, but no one want to talk about them anymore after the donation. 9 out of 14 was on hand. The rest by March, and then the training was already completed in France. So that was actually a bit fast in terms of the training, which means that they probably trained even earlier before the announcement. Suspect.
Yeah,
And
a lot of
interestingly,
people must have had gone out and trained way early for some of these things, because some of these things are really hard to get together.
and 90 M113s. Oh my freaking god! So there is a pattern. That means there's always 90 infantry fighting vehicles.
Yeah,
Then
I see
comes with
90 a lot.
tanks. Yeah, then the 28 tanks here. There's 30 tanks here. So the tanks numbers not always the same. So there's 30 tanks here. There is 16 plus 14. But AMX 10 is actually not exactly a tank. It's a tank destroyer. It's a wheeled tank. And then we have 28 T-72s, and then then all of them have artillery support. This one have 6 M109, 8 FH70. Yeah, so the yellowish one I can't really tell, cannot see. Then you have the striker and mothers in this area. There's 14 challenges. Oh, so there is brigades that actually have a lesser. Oh, sorry, what happens to the to? Yeah, there is actually only 14 Challenger tanks here. This
Mhm.
one have lesser tanks, but they have more. They compensate it with more IFVs. right?
Yeah, so can you zoom out a little bit? I want to see what this middle portion is here on after we already know how much they're sending, we know where they're being trained, and then what is this middle portion really quick?
This one, this area,
No,
this
the one
middle column,
the next one. Oh, the dates, but what are the dates talking about?
you mean this area?
Yeah, the big area where it says like the timeline and everything.
Yeah.
Um
So I think this is a timeline. So they don't have the timeline. For example, they have the timeline of these tanks. They are
oh
currently
yeah,
being trained.
T-64s.
So this area, this timeline is actually the training time, Feb to March.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So the tanks that is the 17 tanks that is missing and the 20 tanks that is missing, 16 tanks missing, they are not on the chart. So that's why it's empty. I suspect these are Abrams. I suspect these are Abram tanks. And but it's just that they did not mention anything about Abrams here. But I believe they do have Abrams already. And so there is this motorized collective and
I can't see
location
anything from
Ukraine.
my screen.
Yeah. So there is this is I think this motorized collection. Oh
Hmm.
my god. And then this is location Ukraine, UKR. Let me see if I can actually sharpen this in any way.
I'm wondering if what I can see is that what people are gonna see or are seeing right now, because
Yeah,
it's
it
a
will be the same. Yeah, it will be the
okay.
same. You can see here motorized collective.
Oh yeah, I can see that a little bit better.
Then there's 01 March to 10 March location. This location is not so clear. Probably Ukraine.
Yeah, maybe because there's probably a K or and an R there.
Yeah, probably Ukraine. Yeah. So yeah. So this is interesting. And the timeline in terms of focus, I think we just focus on the timeline. Everything is just focusing on to finish by the end of March. For this one is Challenger tanks training in Great Britain, and we have information. The latest information I think is that the training has been completed in the open
Hmm.
source outside. They have announced publicly that the training has completed. So, and in fact, they are already back in Ukraine, the challengers. So, if we base on this timeline, now is early April. Yeah, they have a good half a month to bring back the challengers. So that could be accurate.
Yeah, to
As
be
we
honest,
could
a lot of this seems accurate because uh, the we have already known that they've been sending people out to get training. We've already known that, but to see it on a timeline and broken down and different
yeah.
equipment being brought in, it kind of makes sense. I mean, to me, like we said in the beginning, even if it was fake, but I mean, if somebody took the time to do this, it seems pretty legit. The numbers and the training. So this is January, February, March, April, which is like 3 months of basic understanding of this equipment and basic
Mm-hmm.
training, which is pretty much enough for a person not to be out there clueless.
Mm. And so this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's nine different brigades that is being. Is it battalion brigade? BDE is brigade, right?
Brigade.
It is considered,
And
yeah,
I keep
brigade.
calling them
So
battalions.
there is actually brigades. That's
Hmm.
correct. So my understanding is that this okay. My understanding actually is written on top. So 12 combat credible brigades can be generated for the spring offensive. And 3 is actually internal, which is not depicted here. 9 is actually trained, equipped by US allies and partners. Of the 9, 6 will be ready by the 31st of March. And then 3 will be, the final 3 will be by 30th of April. So, which is actually listed here. This is the 3.
Yeah, those are
Two
the
of
three.
them, they're a bit suspect. They're not too sure. Then this one, they're very sure they need more time. This is being trained in Poland, which is the striker and mother plus Challenger plus 119 M119. So this will definitely take time by the end of April. I believe these 3 will be some kind of like a reserve force. The first 6 will go on the offensive first, probably along with the Ukrainian 3 brigades. And I think it's interesting to see all these notes. They do short of they actually list what they're actually having some shortage. They short
Yeah.
of 17 tanks and required M22 122 ammo. This one also on 122 ammo. They're short of all this, but this was 1 month ago. And then they are pending Leopard delivery timelines. Interesting, they also added notes that these primarily MRAPs. So I think based on the different equipments that they have to use different kind of tactics to fight, I guess. How do you fight
What do
with
you think about
MRAPs?
but yeah, well, MRAPs you can actually mount 50 cals, you can mount Mark 19s, you can mount pretty much any heavy or medium machine gun if you want. But the MRAP is basically going to be used for transport, in my opinion. It's really good for transportation. You can fit a lot of people in the back and just haul. But for the most part, it's not really a fighting vehicle.
Yeah, but it
I
looks
could
like they're
see
going
it
to
doing.
use it as such, right? Because there's 90 of them combined with
Yeah.
Leopard 2s. 20, 20, 28, 20,
In
30,
my
21,
opinion,
2.
they're basically gonna use them as transportation and getting more people to a certain location. Uh,
Yeah.
because other than that, and I don't know, what do you think about the percentage on the equipped and then like trained? Those are pretty low numbers.
But this is 1 month ago. And as you can see, the training schedule, because this is the point where they are.
Yeah.
So this is the point where they are at this point of the document. So they still undergoing training for the Max Pro, the
Hmm.
Leopards. So yeah, 20% completed training. That makes sense. Interesting, they didn't really put training for the artillery. Yeah, there's no training for the artillery for this one. So and furthermore, there's composite US. What is this? US complete US and AMP. What is US? I have no idea what's that. Is it too small? Do you want me to zoom in on
Oh,
any
well,
place?
no, well, for me, it's a little bit small and blurry, but also the when you move in the mouse, it glitches out everywhere on the map.
Yeah, yeah.
On the
Why does it glitch? I have no idea why it glitches.
But I mean, like I said, this one to me was the most interesting because of all the numbers and all the information and all the training. Like it reminds me of how tedious it is to get people together and actually get them ready, combat ready. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I can go on forever talking about how beautiful a manifest is, and like from the top to the bottom, you take a lot of officers, you take a lot of non-commissioned officers to get these people ready, and the amount of countries that they're using is actually very bizarre to me, because if there's enough like land or territory to say training them in one place, it would be better than putting them in America and Poland and Canada, and like it's really time consuming when you have so many allies in Europe. That's just my opinion. It's you're going to have a lot of people who've been trained in different languages and in different mentalities, and some of these guys have different doctrines in fighting. I know they're part of NATO, but honestly, some of these countries are definitely different.
And I think there's another thing that is legitimate. I would say that is the way how they deploy the different equipments. Like they really do stick to one type of equipment per brigade,
Yeah,
per battalion. Sorry, per brigade. Like the leopards are all here, and then you have the Russian tanks, the Soviet era tank T-72s all together, the PT-91s all together, the Challengers all together. It's like they do not mix within the
yeah,
same brigade, which
uniformity.
yeah, which allows them to do maintenance easier. And this is another thing that it seems like legitimate, rather than they try to mix it up, try to make it like playing computer games. This makes sense to
Yeah,
me.
It looks really well made. Whoever made it, that's why I was thinking, like, when I first saw this, I said whoever made this is either has done this before, because you can't just invent something like this. You have to have
Yes,
actually done something like this, or you have to have actually done it for this purpose. So this
and
is why
yeah,
I'm interested in this.
yeah, and it's something like I said earlier is that only military people will know this is actually legitimate because uh, non-military people will imagine how high tech we are, but this is actually how military stuff does look like, and I think another interesting thing is we might actually see the spring offensive very soon if this is accurate. And looking at the bar, this looks like almost halfway. So we are
Hmm.
pretty close. We are only maybe just 2 to 3 days or 5 days away from the actual offensive, because this is where the preparation stage ends. I believe this is the preparation stage, the staging, and then we will start to see the offensive, and then the other three brigades will be ready by the end of this month, where they will actually act as the reserve force. So once they manage to break the line or something, then the reserve force can actually punch through, and they have the tanks, 2872s, 31 P91s, and Challenger tanks. I think the Challenger tanks is the most hype up tank among all the tanks so far, because they say that the Challenger tanks have not been lost before in combat. So it's like the most hype up tank.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting what happens when they are actually get contact, and the first one that gets taken out is going to be a trophy for sure. I have to say that the fact that it's marking like mid-April or something like this, it makes sense. When we're looking at the DPA updates and stuff like this, I often think like, Ukraine's running out of time to react. So this falls perfectly with the in a time frame for them to actually start doing something and launch offenses or counter offensive. So if it was anywhere later, it would start to be a little bit iffy for me. This is a military. My military mind is telling me yes, this is a good time frame to actually start a counteroffensive or an offensive.
Equip and transfer window. So I'm correct. So this is so that means the blue bar that you're seeing here, this is where they're doing transfer, equipment,
Hmm.
equipping and transfer. So this period is actually preparation. So this is the training phase. I think next training window you can see. This is training window. Training window. So this area here is all training window. These are all the training window. And then
Hmm.
after that they'll do the transfer and equip and transfer. So there is some equipping here, and then here they actually doing the transfer, and this is actually the other one. So this is actually accurate, which is actually
Yeah,
we are right. So so this area, this is actually not the spring offensive just yet. They are
they
actually
mark it on top though. It says spring offensive on top, so it could be anywhere between
yeah,
from that point on, as they're basically
30
transferring
April,
things.
9 brigades. So they did mark an arrow here.
Hmm.
But this is actually I think the prep that they have. So is there anything else that we can actually scrutinize here? In page 24, this is actually a very long document. So this document is actually much longer than what we are seeing now. So this guy
Oh,
who actually leaked this, definitely he's picking only the juiciest part to take photo. So yeah, so please don't sue us. This is all open source now. Yeah. So we go to the next page.
sure, yeah. It was fun. This
So
page was really cool.
yeah, I find that very interesting too. So you can see that SIRAP, updated every workday. This is actually very common. And then so let's see. So so you can see that there's a lot of this. There's a PCN. There's everything. So very legitimate. Days since start of conflict D370, which is also quite accurate. And then we covered this. So so this is interesting. I think this chart. So the Ukrainian forces have 34 brigades. I can't see what is that.
Fires.
Fire 13. Territorial defense 27. Maneuver forest. Let me see. I can and change this. Is it better? No.
No, not for me. But so this is just breaking down the Ukrainian power. Like it's very straightforward. Like you were reading, and it's reading off the Ukrainian forces, and then it goes on to talk about the Russian forces as well.
So yeah, okay, we can't really read what is that word, unfortunately. And then they have the Russian battalions, which is maximum potential combat power. This is interesting. 544 maximum combat power. Committed to conflict 227. 527 out of 544. So they committed so much as 97%. They say 97% of the Russian battalions is committed. But I wonder if this is actually the entire Russian military, or is it just the battalions that is deployed in Ukraine? I think it's just deployed, right? It
Yeah, I
doesn't mean
think
it's just
exactly. I don't think it would make sense that they wouldn't even have a count actually of non-deployed units. So this has to be units that they have marked out on their data that has been deployed through whatever resources they use. And yeah, this is actual committed to the conflict right now.
so we have regular something battalion. Oh, sorry for the cursor. The reserve battalion and auxiliary battalions. So actually, a lot of them is actually auxiliary. So
Hmm.
268 is auxiliary. So I believe these are the ones that is doing the transportation of ammo and logistics, I guess. Which is why the number is so huge. The actual combat is actually just 215 or 18. This looks like 15 to me.
Yeah, that's very very typical of in a high like at the large front line. This is very very typical, like the logistics that it takes uh to feed these people ammunition, food, and everything, sustainability.
Mm. And interesting, they also put out of the 527, 474 is actually located inside Ukraine. So that means this is actually only the force that is deployed to for Ukrainian operation, and then
Hmm.
90% of the troops is actually inside Ukraine. So yeah, I think it's correct. That means it's not the entire Russian military. Yeah, so no, the you pro-Ukrainians, the Russians haven't put in everything just yet. Um, so there is deployed combat inefficient. Is it? It is effective combat effective. This is deployed combat. It does look like ineffective.
Okay, I see now what you're reading. It, like I said, the freaking cursor is going everywhere, and I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
where.
Why is the cursor like this? No, stupid StreamYard. Yeah,
Okay.
I gotta write a feedback and complain about it. Yeah. So
S-
yeah, auxiliary battalions, reserve battalions, regular. Yeah, it looks like deployed combat ineffective, right? It's effective and ineffective.
yeah.
Why is it ineffective? I don't
It's
know what
probably
that.
something because I think like they mark casualties. So some
Mm,
battalions must have taken losses and probably were taken out of the battle space, and it's been seen by the Ukrainian or NATO forces, and that causes a unit to be ineffective when it gets taken out of a battle space. So all of these Russian units that they have marked out, they have a they're basically in different battle spaces, and you can tell usually when a unit is ineffective because it gets taken out immediately when it takes losses, or when it's actually not needed anymore because it's rendered useless. So this is my opinion of where they get that
it,
term from.
I think it makes a lot of sense because after a certain percentage of casualties, the
Mhm.
combat unit will start to lose effectiveness. I think this is what it means. As this is the most contentious one, the SS lost. I think a lot of people complain about this. Oops, complain about this being not accurate, and this is the reason why they think it's fake. And it and I think there is also another version being circulated. There is they reverse they put Russians actually having more losses, and the
Mm-hmm.
Ukrainians having less, which is what I saw. Which then after that I downloaded a much higher res from us from one of the source that one of the websites that actually reporting on this, and then this is actually the one that I get, which is actually makes more sense where the Ukrainians actually have more losses, like, but the number of aircraft lost looks really low.
On the
Seven
Russian
fighter
side,
bombers, yeah, on the Russian side,
yeah,
and
yeah,
8 helicopters.
yeah, definitely. That's the one thing that that, like stuck out to me when I was looking at this, because if you follow the DPA updates from the beginning, you're like, wait a minute, we've had at least like 10 videos where something's been shot down on the Russian side. So this is definitely
Yeah.
a little bit iffy.
So I wonder if this is actually for a specific time frame, like maybe from for the whole of February, or which is quite scary, which is huge number of killed, or maybe the past 3 months. But I tried to look around. I didn't see that there's any indications that this is actually for a time frame. So yeah, there is
It
this
doesn't have a.
coordinated, yeah, coordinated with, I don't know what's that. E, don't know what's that. Yeah, so all the NATO symbols are, I think, more or less correct. They are all accurate, and
Let me
then they
see the
have the
top of
force.
this.
So Russian forces, Russian reserves. Sorry.
What we can see is the top, like it says March 2023. That's like the only date we have.
Mhm.
So I mean, based off anything for a date, it could probably be that. But going off to the casualties, the thing that I want to talk about is it wouldn't make sense for some people who are watching if Russia had the bottom number and Ukraine had the top number. So off the bat, as we're looking at this document, it wouldn't make any sense if it was flipped. So the
Yeah.
way it is now, for me, minus the aircraft, I'm not going to count the aircraft, but the casualty rate to me makes a little bit more sense, because when we look at how the conflict's been going, we're talking about a military who's been using artillery, and we're talking about a military who's mostly entrenched. So you can see that the losses are going to be a little bit heavier on the people who are getting shelled more than they are shelling. And that's
But
just,
would you think the number is still too small in terms of both sides, or
ye-
should this be like times three? Because there is people who just injured, because this is KIA. This is very specific. Killed
yeah,
in
this is
action.
KIA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that they didn't indicate MIA. They didn't indicated WIA, wounded in action. So the casualty numbers, you might have to like times three, times four of this number to get the total casualty rate,
yeah, in my
which then
opinion,
will
it's
come
probably
closer.
higher.
Yeah, and then it will probably come closer to what is imaginable. I think a few months ago we were talking about like some the EU girl accidentally say 100,000 losses,
Yeah.
right? So by this point of time, uh, which is like another 3-4 months in, yeah, it does make sense. If you times three times four, then it does sounds like the casualty number might be like times three, 200,000, around 200,000.
Also, it's talking about February here on the left side. So,
Yeah, this is
um,
this is the things that happened over the past like 3 days. So you have like Belgium reported that is unwilling to donate aircraft to Ukraine, and will consider providing maintenance and logistics for other countries deliveries.
yeah,
So they do update all the military geopolitical news. Like they put Russian President Putin signed in law that something Kremlin to suspend the disclosure of official Russian statistics. So I never heard this news. So but he signed the law that doesn't need to release official Russian statistics.
Oh
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff always passing through here. I'll say about the like my closing for this document here. What's interesting is it shows on the map here on the right side all these different. This is a whole nother basically sheet of paper. The groupings and the troops and positionings and all that. Is this the
Yeah.
one that said top secret?
Yeah, top secret.
Yeah.
So they have all the different units. You can see this actually there's actually numbers and the unit. We cannot see it because it's very small and blur. But like the eastern grouping, what the units are there, and then central units, what the units are there, and then actually if all these color actually mean something. There is actually you see the three colors. So the colors, one is I think Russian forces reserve. So the red one is actually the one that is fighting, I think. Then the dark red is actually in reserve. Then combat effective auxiliary force. So the one in the lightest pink is actually the combat effective auxiliary force, and then they have the gray one is a deployed combat ineffective force. Then after that, cannot read, man. Combat ineffective reserve force and uh combat deployed ineffective auxiliary. Yeah. So they actually have a tracking of all the units in terms of their status as well, whether are they combat effective or ineffective.
And these are the Russian side. This is on the Russian side,
Yes,
right?
these are all the
Yeah.
Russian side. So maybe this is the reason why it's top secret, because the how they get all this information is a suspect.
Yeah. You don't want to know, you don't want your enemy to know that you know what they are, what they're doing and stuff like this. This is definitely top secret. Because if word gets out about, hey, they know that this is the unit that's here, it turns into a freaking hellhole for yourself.
I
This is
think
actually page 7.
another thing in oh yeah, so another thing interesting is that you can see that the central grouping is the shittiest, because half of the units are all not red. That means half of the units has been messed up,
Yeah.
and central group of forces is actually fighting in Crimea. So those are the central grouping is center group. They are fighting in the Crimea region here. So
Mm-hmm.
interesting that they have so many units that is actually not they are combat ineffective. So that means the fighting there must be quite bad. The eastern
Yeah.
grouping has the seemingly the best. They only have like 2 units that is ineffective. Here, there's only 2 units ineffective. But then we have the western grouping. Western grouping, I'm not sure is. Then we have the southern grouping. Western grouping, yeah. But these two forces, the biggest force is actually the one southern grouping. I believe the southern one was the one holding the Kherson and the Zaporizhia line, which is why the units are quite numerous, and casualty numbers are quite low. Yeah, it's just something interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, ineffective doesn't mean specifically that you took too many casualties. It can also mean that you're ineffective because your gear can be broken. You don't have the enough ammunition. Like being combat ready can change if you don't have weapons, if you don't have armor. Like the Russians logistically can be not supplying these men, so ineffective to do any operations. But yeah, definitely the southern group, and they have the most because of those large front lines that they have to cover.
And then another interesting thing is I think this Iskandar, you can see there's TOS-1A, and then there's the SA-21, SA-21 Iskandar, SA-21, SA-23. So they have some what kind of unit it is as well.
Hmm.
Can you see? Yeah.
No, TOS, TAS, I can't see
Here
anything.
TOS-1A is
Okay.
SA-21 Iskandar. So they do then this SA-23. SA is surface to air missile, right? I think it's SAM units.
Yeah, surface to air. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a SAM unit. So there's also TOS-1A at the center group. Yeah, then this also TOS-1A Iskandar. This one is a SA-23.
They
This
look they look
SA-21, SA-23.
really. I mean, they look uniformed as well on the Russian side, and they look pretty willing, beefed up.
So, in case viewers you are wondering why this entire presentation is so messed up, yeah, so messy, it's because we really haven't really gone through it in details, because we are now doing the analysis in real time with you guys. So, yeah, I'm also discovering new things that I didn't notice earlier when I was first looking at all these documents. So,
This is
yeah,
awesome.
any idea what is all these green markings? This is where all the Ukrainian units are.
I mean, I think it must be something where Ukraine has forces, because on Kiev it has a bunch, like a bunch
Yeah.
happening.
So there is some. So we discovered something new again. So there is some interesting things that is happening here. There's a huge force that is at Odessa. Another huge. Then there's massive amount of force around Kiev. Troops in Sumy make sense. There's some troops in Kharkiv make sense. So we can see where the forces are actually deployed. I think this is Konstantinivka. I think no, I forgot what's the city name. There's a major hub here, Pokrov. Yeah, we cannot see much about the ones around Bakhmut. It all looks very fade.
It is it's muddy there. There's so much going on in that.
Yeah, and then a lot of forces in the Orikhiv, Huaypore region, and then just off the Hoda. Yeah, this looks legitimate, man. Where the forces are, which means that there might be actually even more forces than what we can see here. That at the front line that we usually look at, that means there's still a lot of forces in reserve, and they are all holding important positions. And it's interesting, the smaller force is very fade, and then the huge force are all very thick.
Mm-hmm.
And then all these forces by the border, they are actually all defending the border, so it makes sense to be there as well. And then they are very afraid of Odessa landing, so you can clearly see. Wow, the arrows. So sorry. You can
It's all
clearly
right.
see that the Ukrainians are very afraid of the Odessa landing. Like, this is a huge amount of forces as compared to all the other places. Yeah, interesting. They didn't put any forces that is in Kupian's region. So yeah, this area they are currently is also fighting as well, but they did not put any blue marking there. So a lot of interesting things to actually dig through.
Yeah, up until now, so far that this map has the most information about what the previous one said. Hey, by the way, this is where we're deploying troops. This is what our troops are doing. But really, if the green smears on this map actually mean what we think, it makes a lot of sense. Like the Odessa, like the Kharkiv, like the Kiev, and all these different lines in the Zaporozhye and in the Donbass region. This is basically the most problematic areas for Ukraine, and it really shows with markers where they're using or where their troops are stationed.
Yeah, you see in the South Ukraine nuclear power plant, they do have units there as well, so that makes sense as well. Then they have forces at Zaporizhia itself. So not everything checks out. I think this area here, Andrievka, I think this is Davidiv Breed. So they have some troops there, guarding the crossing over there to the Kherson region. Wow, sorry, I didn't see the cursor. Yeah, so it looks legitimate. It's super legitimate. This actually corroborates a lot of the things that we do know, and it does make military sense to have units in all these different positions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say, I'm going to close with this. Like, we know we follow the war day by day through the DPA, and we know all these different movements that are happening. But when you zoom out and you think, why is it happening this way? Well, these green dots tell you why it's happening this way. The war is molded around special interest by both sides, and they're basically fighting like uh, they're both trying to impose their battle styles or their war on the enemy, and it's just mushing up in the front lines, like right there in the Donbass. It's one big disaster.
Yeah, you can't really tell what the hell is happening here. It's just a lot of words. So I go to the next page to, yeah, this is actually the simplest page to actually look at,
This one's
like
so
of all. So they actually know in their war planning they actually need to know when they can maneuver. So they do have the mud frozen ground timeline. Uh, yeah, so they do know when the ground will be frozen and muddy or favorable for operation. Yeah, so they have the lines is based on this lines here. Oh my god, the freaking cursors. So now I'm looking here, I can tell the cursors are going everywhere. The
It's all
blue
right. You can just keep doing it.
the blue line is actually where the frozen ground will be. Let me pull out my this thing again. Uh, me Yeah. So in on March 22, here everywhere here will be all frozen. This is what it means. So but mid early Feb, it will just be here. This area here will be frozen. This area here will no longer be frozen. That's what it means. So by mid March, it will be the green line. So the frozen part is actually receding northward. I believe that's what it means. So it helps them to do their war planning when they can actually do something. So as you can see, April is actually muddy period. So the April is actually muddy period, and the only favorable time is actually from mid May onwards. So if we talk about spring offensive, would they actually go on an offensive during the muddy period? Is questionable, because now we are in early April now, and we do actually in our reporting, as also the footages that come out from Ukraine, we can see the ground literally melts, all the snow melts into mud, and this is actually accurate. This timeline is actually accurate.
Yeah.
So
Can I butt in really quick? For anybody who doesn't understand why this is so important, like on the top, you can see freeze favorable to vehicle maneuver. So, as a human being who's living in Russia, I'm experiencing like my first Siberian winter, and Russian and Ukrainians expect and get a lot of snow. Right now, as the snow is melting, I'll tell you, it is the most muddy. Your feet will just sink in, and that's just body weight. So you really need to plan ahead and understand the environment. So this simple map is really important, because maybe some troops from Ukraine are from a place where it doesn't snow so much, or they've never been on a tracked vehicle or a heavy vehicle. So they need to understand when and where they can operate with their heavy equipment. And yeah, if my body as I'm walking outside is sinking, I can just imagine what a vehicle that weighs tons is gonna have, what it's gonna happen to it.
hmm,
Hell.
there's an interesting. So this is February 28th, February 20. Not too sure why. Because
Mhm.
this is a bit funny, because they put the Ukrainian offensive blue, and then they mark it out the entire area, but they didn't have an offensive in Feb. So I'm not sure if this is actually accurate Ukrainian offensive. It's kind of weird. Yeah, you can see Ukraine offensive,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah, I see
the
it.
area is actually in the Kharkiv region, which makes not a lot of sense, unless they want to go on the offensive in the Kharkiv region, which is kind of stupid, because that's too close to Russia. I don't know. Yeah, so people were pointing out about this page as well, saying that this is they say that this makes no sense in terms of the offensive. I think this might be a typo, which is possible. I mean,
Yeah, I
or
mean, for me, it's just detailed on ground information. I wouldn't take that Ukrainian offensive seriously. This is more or less just an interesting page that talks about
Mm.
the environment, because it does play a big part in this war.
So, so do you think they will go on the offensive on the Mahdi period,
I mean,
mid-April?
I think that if they want to actually, like I said in the earlier slides, if they want to do something like hit with a strong punch, they should probably go mid to late April, depending on where that line is, because some of it might not be so muddy, but to be honest, the longer they wait, the stronger the lines get that they have to punch into, and they don't. It's like you're caught in between. How do you say, like a bad place and a I don't know, but they're stuck in
Yeah,
a bad
I
place.
forgot the term as well. So another question I want to ask you is the do so when they say spring offensive, do you think that there will be a period within the offensive that is actually not fighting, but they're actually just moving as part of the offensive, moving to positions? Because it does seems like no, they are trying to fight in the middle of the muddy season, which don't make a lot of sense to me. What do you think?
So this is what and I keep talking about this, but they need to do something now. And if they don't do something now, it's their window's going to close. Now, if they start moving now, it's even dangerous too, because if they do hit a place where it's too muddy, if they do hit a place where it's not easy to go through, maneuver through, they're just gonna be sitting ducks. Um we're gonna have to wait and see, but my guess is that they're probably moving people now for sure, 100%. Why? Because they need to get ready. By the time it's hard enough, they need to be moving. Um, this is this is without a doubt that they're moving people already,
Mm.
without a doubt.
Okay.